What is up everyone? You're watching a video on who exactly are the Yakshas. This video will contain some 1.3 spoilers, so you have been warned. Alright, now that any guilt over spoilers are gone, let's talk about the Yakshas. So I just want to clear up one quick thing before we start. A common misconception is that there are only 5 Yakshas. There was actually a lot more than just the 5. It's just the lore surrounding the Yakshas simply revolves around the 5 most powerful ones. These are the ones you see in the Yaksha story video. Being that there were once so many of them, who exactly are the Yaksha? To answer this, we actually need to go back all the way to the Archon War, where gods were just going ham at each other. In these times, human rights weren't exactly at the forefront of the times, so gods would often enslave people to make them fight in their armies. But what does this have to do with Yakshas? This is where the spoilers start to come in. We don't know the origin of every single Yaksha out there, but we do know the origin of one of the Yakshas, Xiao. You see, Xiao was once an enslaved adeptus who fought for one of the evil gods. It wasn't until Morax, also known as Zhongli in current times, slayed the evil god, that Xiao was freed. So from this we can determine that most likely the other Yakshas were once the people that evil gods enslaved as well. We really can't determine the origin of every single Yaksha out there, but they all must have one prerequisite. They must have had some serious beef with the evil gods. This prerequisite is actually tied to the origins of why the Yakshas were formed. So we've answered the question of who were the Yakshas, but we haven't answered the actual purpose of the Yakshas and why they were formed. So what exactly is the purpose of the Yakshas? Well, interestingly enough, the reason the Yakshas were formed also stems from the Archon War. The problem stems from the evil gods. In the lore of Genshin Impact, countless evil gods were slayed by Zhongli and the other Archons during the Archon War. And this is actually a problem because the evil gods have very strong souls. Because they're gods. So when they die, their souls split into fragments, and these fragments contain all of the negative emotions and desires for vengeance at the time of their death. All of these countless fragments of evil gods will continue to fester in the world, grow in power, and will corrupt the world around them so long as they are around. So how can you make sure that none of these fragments that contain the countless negative emotions and desires of vengeance of these evil gods to escape and cause a disaster, or in the worst case scenario, cause the evil god to resurrect? Morax, also known as Zhongli, knowing that on his own he couldn't destroy all of the remnants, decided to form a countermeasure against the remnants of the evil gods, known as the Yaksha. And who better to form the Yaksha than those who once knew the terrible powers that the evil gods wrought? So, knowing this, Zhongli gathered the people once enslaved by the evil gods. They would be tasked with eliminating the fragment souls of the evil gods and forever making sure they will never see the light of day again. That is how the Yakshas came to be. The strongest of the Yakshas would then be known as the 5 foremost Yakshas. These are the ones from the Yaksha video. Unfortunately, the idea was sound, but things don't always go according to plan, especially when it comes to evil gods. There was a huge flaw when it came to destroying an evil god's fragment. Every time a Yaksha would break a fragment of an evil god's soul, a portion of the negative emotions that the evil gods held would be absorbed by the Yaksha. They would then be bound to these negative emotions. Day after day, the negative emotions of people who died, all of their fear, their anger, their helplessness, all of it would be transferred to the Yaksha, and they were relentlessly tormented by them. Over the years, as the Yakshas kept breaking up the soul fragments, more and more of these negative emotions would be absorbed by them. Eventually, the Yakshas couldn't stand it, and their minds would snap. This is why the Yakshas went mad in the video. They just couldn't stand the negative emotions anymore. And so, the Yakshas succumbed one by one over millennia, until only 2 Yakshas remain. Both were once part of the 5 foremost Yakshas, one named Bosakius and the other named Alidus. Bosakius, seeing the rest of the Yakshas die around him, disappeared from the world. As for Alidus, he is the only Yaksha to remain faithful to his duty of making sure the evil gods never appear again. For millennia, Alidus has carried the burdens of the evil gods' fragments and continues to fulfill his duty as the last remaining Yaksha. Of course, as 1,000 years had passed, he now goes by another name, Xiao the Demon Slayer, the last remaining Yaksha. and to this day, he carries the burden of the evil god's fragments, and his mind is constantly tortured by them. This has been the history of the Yakshas. Thank you so much for watching, and see you guys in the next one.